Sorry, takes a village. All right, everybody, welcome to the very first Boulder Police Oversight Panel meet and greet at the Boulder Public Library. It is September 22nd. My name is Taisha Adams. I use she, her pronouns. I have been living in Boulder for about 10 years now, and joined the panel in 2020 in its formation. I am your host tonight, and you can go ahead to the next slide. I was going to kind of walk you through the flow of the evening. So had a little bit of time to mix and mingle. We'll do a welcome and land and people acknowledgement, a brief overview of the panel. And we also have copies of the annual report, and we'll share a copy of the annual report in the link as well. If you provide your email, we'll also share the presentation and any other materials. And then we'll have a panel discussion, and really that is around sharing with you why we joined the panel, what our experience has been thus far, and why we hope others join this panel as we are opening up the recruitment phase, and the applications open on Monday. So we are very excited, and hopefully you can be champions and messengers to spread the word for those who would be interested in joining us. This is an incredible experience and a transformational one, both individually, collectively, and of course for our city. I will go ahead and do the land and people acknowledgement, and then we'll go ahead and do introductions of the rest of the panel. We acknowledge the Arapaho, Ute, and Cheyenne tribes, the traditional custodians of the land on which the Police Oversight Panel and the Boulder Police Department operate, and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. In addition, we are hopeful that there are Indigenous folks that are interested in applying and serving on our panel, as well as if there are any organizations serving Indigenous people or tribal leaders or representatives that would like to know more about what we're doing. We would be happy to meet with you, meet you where you are, meet in the Zoom room, or meet in the Boulder Library. And now I am joined by our panelists, or a brief overview of the panel. A brief overview of the panel. We were created by the council to really increase community engagement in police oversight, and ensuring that historically excluded and marginalized communities and peoples have a voice in policing in our city. We are an independent entity and under the office of the Independent Monitor, and Joey behind you, Joey in the party, is our current and inaugural police oversight monitor, and really has laid a tremendous groundwork for that work. We really review internal complaints as well as external complaints. We meet monthly to then Joey provides us with a summary of all of the different complaints that have been posted. We review them. We vote on which ones we want to do a deeper investigation in, and then we dive deep. We get all of the information that the police department would get, cam videos, reports. I mean, it is more extensive than I could have ever imagined. But that's really the depth, right? That's the transparency that this panel has the opportunity to provide to our community. And then we make recommendations based on the criteria of the police department. And that recommendation goes to the chief. In addition to just saying whether we sustain or not, or this one or that one, we also provide more information. Oftentimes there might be issues that are outside of our authority. And so we might make a policy recommendation. Again, we don't have the authority to set policy, but we can certainly recommend it based on what we're seeing internally. And it's been rather exciting. The panel members provide oversight with monitoring. Okay. And then everything else will be shared during the panel. As I said, my name is Taisha Adams. I use she, her pronouns. I am the co-chair. In addition to serving on the panel, I'm the co-chair of the Community Engagement and Communications Committee. And I'm very excited to be here each day. And I'll go ahead and go down the line of those in person, and then we'll hop online to our panelists who've joined us online.
Thanks, that was excellent. So my name is Victor King. I'm also the co-chair of the Outreach and Communications Committee. I'm a longtime Boulder resident, going on almost 30 years now. I also serve on the board of directors for the Boulder Shelter for the Homeless. I have a lot of experiential knowledge living in Boulder on all sides of police and other issues that are really pertinent to the county. So I bring a lot of lived experience to the panel, and it's just been great meeting.
And a father. A wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Arasa Villalobos. I use she, her pronouns. I am the chair of the governance committee. So when it comes to proposing updates to the ordinance that created us, that's our realm. Then also any updates to our internal bylaws that we've created. Sorry. Yeah, and then aside from that, I work at a local food manufacturer. And our population is basically all immigrants. It's a Spanish-speaking community, is 99% of the facilities. So I live and work in compliance and Spanish, and that's why I'm here. So.
And then we'll go ahead and go online, Martha. And this is where the audio is going to be bad for us, but let's just take it in. Go ahead, Martha.
I will try to speak loudly and enunciate if that helps.
And if you have it, you should feel free to come close. I'm happy.
I am Martha Wilson. I am chair of the Legacy Review Committee. And I also do some work in the community with racial justice, social justice efforts. I currently represent families through the Office of Respondent Parent Counsel as a social worker. So that's families who have open child welfare cases. And I also enjoy doing some policy study work as a doctoral student through public administration.
And Chico?
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute button. My name is Wembia Chikorwa. You can call me Chico. Ease of pronunciation. So I work for Lumen Technologies in the tax department.
Can you speak up a little, Chico? I'm having a hard time hearing. I'm right next to it.
Oh, really?
All volume all the way up. All of the volume. Give the best projection voice. And again, I apologize for those who have any kind of hearing or accessibility.
Okay, let me see whether I can crank it up. Is that
Crank
better?
it up.
Is that better?
It's better.
Let me start again. My name is Wembia Chikorwa. You can call me Chico for ease of pronunciation, and blah, blah, blah. I work for Lumen Technologies in the tax department. My area of interest is in special needs and mental health. I have a now another young adult son who is special needs. So that's my special interest. And I am part of the Legacy Committee.
If you're talking to us, we cannot hear you.
I forgot. I still have to be on. So that's where Joey, it looks like you'll need to be muted if we're talking in here, but then so tag team back again. All right, we're ready. We can do this. And so now we're going to go to the panel component, asking any panelists who would like to kick us off. Actually, we'll start here since we got our audio right for here on why did you join the panel?
Yeah, so
3 years ago.
I know, I'm like, it almost felt like a why the the work is obviously very important, is very needed in our community. I have an aptitude for compliance and regulation, and so I feel like I can get through in terms of like, I've mastered how to get policies to say what it is that we want to say, and the direction that we want to go. And so I'd like to bring that to police oversight. And in terms of like, you know, sometimes just changing one word can make something dramatically different, but can actually give us some teeth if we're trying to hold people accountable for different actions. And so that's where I saw that I fit in. Yeah, that's fine.
And maybe share some experience that's kind of connected to that work. I think of some of the words that we walk around and
Yes.
would love to.
Yeah, so one of the things, one small thing, for example, we had a situation where somebody turned in a complaint. I think we weren't able to get a hold of them, and so it didn't go through the whole process. And so typically the classification for that would be unfounded. And that's the kind of thing where, you know, it might not be a big deal because it never was pushed through, but that terminology means something, right? To say something that was unfounded versus it didn't get completed or didn't get investigated, that's very different in language. And so paying attention to that, bringing attention to that, and making an effort to change that is I think important and worthwhile. So.
That's a question that has many parts. One of the reasons why I joined the panel is, you know, I had some training. So I entered something called the Boulder County Leadership Fellows through the Chamber of Commerce. It's a one-year program where you get tons of information and different just venues and speakers. And so after going through that one-year program, they ask you to join a board. Simultaneously, George Floyd was murdered, and I did not want that to happen to my son. I still haven't been able to watch that video, but that summer of George Floyd, I did not go to a single protest. I did not post a single thing on Facebook. I did not go to a single march. But I said, hey, there's something I can actually do in my community besides this fake, you know, social media warriors. I can actually go out and do something. And the area where I come from, I used to live underneath this library, right? I've been homeless on the Boulder streets for 7 of the 30 years that I've lived here. And there's only one other person I know who has risen up from those ashes and also advocates. That's Jennifer Livovich, does Feet Forward. So I'm one of the only 2 voices I know from the unhoused community that has gotten to this position to advocate for Boulder County Housing Services, to advocate for different venues, for me to actually walk into the police station after I've been arrested 13 times. What a great way to advocate. And no one else here has that experience. Thankfully, you didn't have to go through that. I did, right? So I have a unique experience to share. And it took me a while to find my voice. It's not easy to get up here. It's not easy to do all these meetings. It definitely takes a lot out of you. But it just felt to me the best opportunity I have right now to really make a change. And so I'm here for 3 years just to try it out.
Thank you. Sorry. That was beautiful. Taisha Adams, I joined because I come from a family of service, and I believe that democracy is a muscle. And I believe that community policing is possible. And I believe that change starts in your backyard. And it also gave me an opportunity to connect with my fellow panelists, which has been an incredible experience to learn from such a diverse group in all of the ways, racially and ethnically, education, geography, language. It's really been something, and you know, it's not easy. These are hard and heavy issues, and these are people's lives, both the people who submit the application or complaint, as well as the officers who, or detectives who may be on the other side of that. as well as what's going on internally. And so I'm just really grateful to have this opportunity. I have had both negative and positive policing experiences. I've had police show up when I've been, in just domestic violence situations or sexual assault situations. And I've had police do not great things to me. And I would love for everyone to have a more quality experience. I was particularly struck, I want to talk about the training that we receive. There was an extensive, almost 6 months, I feel like, of training. And one of the ones I was able to go to in person was the use of force. And I remember when they were talking about the level 1, which is like the lowest level. And the example they showed us was they went over to the person and they were like, "How are you? Is everything okay?" It was just like, I was like, is that possible? That is on the table. That is an option that should be, because I've seen it escalate in all kinds of ways. And to be able to get an inside look at how our police officers were trained and to make recommendations there as well, was also something I wasn't expecting, right? I wasn't expecting the policy recommendations. I wasn't expecting these other components, but I love building systems. I spent my career building systems and programs and programs for people and planet. So I'm not going to take up too much space because I want to bring in our voices from online. So Joe, we're going to do the exchange. Here we go. We're going to start with Martha. You ready?
Yes. I'm Martha Wilson. It's a complicated question on how I came to this work, but I guess I'll just start with, from a young age, it was very clear that I was treated differently by law enforcement. At age 6, I can remember very vividly my first encounter with law enforcement, and it was having just been in an accident with my African-American father driving. It was 3 cars total. We're the middle car. There's a car in front of us and a car behind us. And when the officer got to our car, it wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was pulling him out and throwing him on the hood. So I did not understand certain things. My mom, who is a very light complected Hispanic woman, did not receive the same treatment from law enforcement. At age 10, I answered the door and the police had the wrong apartment and they held me at gunpoint. So there's not an association with safety there, and there really hasn't ever been. As an adult, I work with law enforcement quite often. I review a lot of police reports in my work with child welfare, investigating child abuse for many years. So there has been the opportunity for some partnerships and investigation opportunities, but because of my skill set, I actually investigated various people, including police, who get calls on them for the treatment of their children or for domestic violence situations that were happening in their own homes. So as much as there is relationship there, that ability to not necessarily associate police with safety has allowed the opportunity to question and to be able to see them as people and provide some scrutiny there, because people are capable of anything. And of course, every day I can turn on the news and there's a new person of color dying. Because I am mixed, I am affected by both the Black and brown deaths that are happening on a consistent basis. So if there's any way that I could get involved, I was going to be involved. So sometimes that did mean leading marches and going out and protesting as an outlet. But in more respects, I participate in events like this. So this panel can give the full breadth of whether or not you simply want to review, or if you want to get involved further by joining one of the 3 subcommittees that are available. And it's been, anything worth effort takes effort. So there's been a lot of I would say opportunities, and there's still more opportunities to come for that place and space of potentially getting the police to a point where they can be safe for everyone, and where everyone can have that availability to experience safety when it comes to contact with the police.
And Martha, you mentioned sorry. You mentioned our 3 committees. Do you mind sharing a little bit about the Legacy Committee while we have you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the intro, this particular question with our last panelist, Chico?
Sure. So the Legacy Review Committee was kind of my baby a little bit. But it really gives an opportunity to take a hard look at those historical differences and really work to ensure that the active societal trauma does not continue on into the future. So we are examining some historical ventures. We are examining things that have happened that need to change. One of our projects that we will be working on involves the policies for handling juveniles between law enforcement, as well as handling affected community members who may be having a mental health condition. Those are very near and dear to the people on the panel, and we get the opportunity to really review hard data, and we got our first data dump, so we're going to be synthesizing that soon, so that if you like that kind of stuff, this is definitely a good niche, and I do like that stuff.
Well, Martha, that was a good way to about our legacy committee. And first of all, before we get to that, or I speak more on that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Wembia Chikorwa. I'm Chico. You may call me Chico. So for me, like I mentioned earlier on, my interest on this panel, my special area of interest is on special needs and mental health. I have a 23-year-old autistic son who went through the Boulder Valley School District, and I call myself, or I try myself to champion or to be a voice for the voiceless. And it's very dear to me, and it goes to the core of who I am and who I want to be. I live it. I live in the special needs world. That's my world. I live in it. And I've had instances where, for instance, just to give an example, where both in this state and another state, where my son has had a meltdown, which, for those that preview or know special needs, they can't verbalize. Some of them can't verbalize, or expressing themselves is an issue. So they tend to have meltdowns. And we've had some interactions with the law enforcement have not been up to what, as a parent, I would consider acceptable. So it's such instances that drive me to see that there is change. And also, just a corollary to that is being a person of color and having a young young man for a son, who, if in normal circumstances, I've had given him the talk. And for those that, I'm sure probably everybody knows the talk, I would have given him the talk, but he doesn't vocalize. So it's difficult to have the talk. So that's why I'm I entered this panel. Initially, I was an alternate member. Then I joined fully in November last year. And together, Martha and I had us, we are part of the legacy committee. And like Martha was saying, we are trying to review legacy issues or issues that have happened with what I call the voiceless. So that's my area.
Awesome. We have some more questions to respond to, but I wanted to open up to just questions that you have. Oftentimes we never have time for questions. And so I just would love to hold space for any specific questions that you may have for us. And if you don't have any, that's okay. We've got some, particularly why we want others to join and what our experience has been. But if there's anything in particular that you'd like to know about our experience or what it's like serving, happy to hold space for that. And anything
I have
online?
several questions.
Okay.
Um,
And if you could just say your name.
my
well,
name
that'd
is
be great.
Jane Powell. First of all, you could just tell me how often you meet and what kind of a time commitment there is, and if you could just kind of briefly do, and I mean briefly, just touch on what kind of training is involved.
Mhm.
That would be very helpful.
Sure. I can also start that one.
She's on our governance committee.
So we have monthly meetings. Those are about 2 hours a month. We do case reviews. That's on a sign up basis. Generally 2, maybe 3 cases a month, maybe 1 to 3 cases is what I will say. And case reviews. The meeting is usually about an hour, but depending on the case, you know, you might want to spend a couple of hours reviewing the materials.
It really depends on the size of the case as well.
It really
I mean,
does.
there's some
And
that
so
is
what
very,
is it? What do you mean by a case?
By a case, so the complaints that we get, so when
Okay.
somebody submits a complaint, it goes to PSU first.
A
They-
citizen does it.
Yeah, so police standard, so a citizen will submit a complaint regarding a police officer,
I see.
or it could be an internal police officer submitting a complaint to another police officer.
Uh-huh.
But they do their complaint first, Joey categorizes it, in terms of like what we think that complaint is a violation of, which specific rule. Police investigates it, they get all the data, we get the information. If we decide to review that case, we then open it up, look at it, and then give our recommendations based on that. And so, you know, some months it's like 3-4 hours, and some months it's more like 8 to 10 hours. And then we also, the training, so for us, we did, it's probably about 6 months. We did like Saturday sessions, couple of Saturday sessions. We don't have our formal training program for new people coming in yet, but we are working on that right now. And so we anticipate something similar, probably like 6 to maybe 10 Saturdays here and there, just to cover different topics. And so, yeah.
it's about 20 hours a month, 20 to 30, depending on, again, the caseload. The committees are optional, so we have some panelists that aren't on committees, and they take on more caseloads. You know, when we came in initially, we were thinking, well, we're only going to do the caseloads, but then you realize, wait, there's these other components. We didn't have any bylaws. We didn't have any way to determine which ones to review and which ones not. We didn't, so it was just like, wait a second. And when we went to check, there weren't a ton of, the governance committee did a heavy lift investigating and collecting other bylaws and ways of procedures from other police panels across the country. But I can't remember, Martha, I feel like there were like maybe 6 or 7. There wasn't a deep bench, and there weren't a ton of reports on. I mean, it's a fairly recent phenomenon, I feel, 5 to 10 years. And so that did take, I feel like it was a much heavier lift to get to this point, but now that the things are established and we've kind of got a rhythm, you know, once you've been through a few case reviews, you kind of get a rhythm. I've got like a little spreadsheet that I use to make sure I can put all the little stuff in it. And but yeah, any other Chico?
Yeah, I was just going to add on the training piece that, like I remember just speaking, I'm sure the other panelists went through the same thing as well. There were about 8 training sessions, starting with the history of policing and oversight, border police department values and ethics, use of force, stop and arrest procedures, crisis intervention, homeless outreach. So there's a lot of training that is there that's undertaken as well, both in person. It can be both in person and virtual.
And we also have a couple of, we also have a couple of panelists joining the, where y'all going?
Oh, we went to the NACO conference.
Which
So
is the,
that was the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. And so
how was that?
it was incredible. So there were people, not just from all over the country, but all over the world. And that was super powerful to see the way that some countries are structuring it from the bottom up, right? So they're saying we want oversight from the federal level all the way down to the local police level and how they're building that. So that was cool, but then also like, okay, well, we're in a different boat. So how we kind of cobble things together is sort of our challenge. So
Thank you. And just again, so we had our set trainings, but then there are also these other ad hoc trainings and opportunities to not only learn, but also to engage with other police oversight panelists in other cities.
And the last piece wasn't mentioned, we also have quarterly meetings with police chief, so that adds on to that training. You said you have more questions, so yes.
You are able to volunteer as much as you want.
Yes.
I'm creating all this, like, going through the Genesis stuff. I've got some startups that's impressive. I'm just curious what you all would say also, Julie, if I can, in terms of your relationship and how you're seeing the department and the level of effectiveness that you, on one hand, put all this time in, but on the other hand, you feel like it's been received and for the department level.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of education to be done. So sometimes officers don't understand our role and may view us in a different light. And so there's still that like relationship piece. We had some of the training was ride-alongs. We all had an option to do a ride-along. Not everyone did that, but again, it was a great opportunity. So still that relationship piece is part of that. We have a officer who joins our team. What's his title? Like the
Liaison.
Liaison. So we have a police officer who doesn't vote, but he's part of the panel. And so that position is vacant right now, but that also helps us to understand the culture and the ins and outs. But I think overall we've been, we've made some cases where officers have, lost their jobs, right? And so we've definitely stepped up. And it's also been nice to see the way that the chief and the department has really embraced us on a leadership level. And I've seen that in the way that they, as you see the reports in the quarterly report, you can see was it sustained, exonerated, but oftentimes the department is almost in lockstep sometimes with our strong recommendations. So that has been nice to see.
Anything online?
I didn't hear the full question, but if I'm picking up from what Victor said, who I could hear, I would say that, like anything, people are cautious when they're being scrutinized, but I can say that I've had the impression that, good cops don't like bad cops either. So they're open about what's going on, their interpretation of events, and it's at least been fairly open in the relationship building.
what we've heard from other people from all over the country, right? One thing that is unfortunate is that in general, you're not going to have these panels created. You're not going to have anything. We're not going to get this far if the city isn't open to it and if the police isn't open to it. At this point, to get us to the table to get the ordinance created, police were in the room city was in the room, city managers approved, like we have quite a bit of support, whereas in cities where there is no ordinance panel, they're not even entertaining the thought, right? And so we do have some support that way. Obviously, it's still oversight is going to be what's the word? I mean, bad actors don't like accountability, right? And so that's going to always create some tension. And there are, by nature, we are civilians versus police, and so what we think should happen might not always be the way that things happen. But like Victor said, it's very few and far between where we've given a recommendation and the police agree with that. So
No, definitely. And I think there are also there's this ecosystem outside of the department that I wasn't aware of around like arbitration and stuff like that. So, there are these really strong systems that even if we do our best here, there might be another gateway. And so recognizing that, how do we kind of thread the needle, if you will? And those are things that I hadn't considered. But, and I would also say, having the support of the city has been really helpful. So you'll notice the increase of the panelists from 9 to 11. As we mentioned, that's a lot of hours. We need more people. And so, to have that, and also there was an increase in the stipend because they recognized how much time we were able to share, just, that this was more than what we had initially bargained for. And so making sure that we create a pathway where everybody can serve was also critical. Martha, I see Chico has their hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add that with our work, what we're trying, it all hinges on what kind of society do we want to live in. So that stems from there. And whatever we are doing as a panel will need a lot of community support. Community support because our powers as a panel are all enshrined in the ordinances. So if the community feels that there are certain things that need to be done, we'll need a lot of support from the community to maybe even change the ordinances. Nothing is cast in stone. So that's what I can add.
Martha?
I also, I guess a final note would be, that's the beauty of a living document. Like you have the opportunity to help shape it, to help mold it, to help guide what should happen in the future. And that's one of the most beneficial to me personally, because it's going to take timbering. It's going to take a strong backbone, but also an open heart and mind.
Sorry.
I hear nothing.
It is my understanding that we receive the same access to all of the files as the original, as they do. There is to be no, it's full transparency. So and the reason that going back to the hours, is that right? Hey, I got a cosign. But those hours, because we get all of the police cams. So anybody who shows up, we get their full cam. So if that took 2 hours, and that's 2 hours of video, and we get access to all of those. Joey, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to point out, I can see from my role as monitor, I have full access to the so I can see when the panel gets the file. When the panel gets the file, I can check and put it in that file and say, okay, they have every video, they have every report, every printout that is in an actual file. They get everything in.
Well, how do you maintain confidentiality in this process?
They've all signed confidentiality agreements, and you would too if you joined. You get assigned a city email address, and all the business is done through the city emails. So that kind of
creates a record of any interaction. Anything you receive from me or from the city or the police department goes to that city email, so it can be monitored in case anything was sort of shared with a third party or someone who wasn't authorized. And we have not had any issue like that with the panel. Everything has been secure and confidential since the start.
Yeah, while our meetings are public, police reviews are closed. So those are just for panelists only.
So do you meet as a group when you do a case review?
We meet as a
Okay.
group, yes, and that one is closed.
And where do you meet?
We meet virtually usually.
Peter.
For
Oh,
now,
Online.
yes,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, Zoom meetings.
yes, yeah, we're working on more in person, but
Well, and I believe we were waiting until the city council meets in person again. We can't meet until the city government starts to meet in person again. So once that happens, we'll create hybrid opportunities is the hope. Last question?
So Giles Trump and been involved for a couple of years. Just first of all, I think it's a great idea. Obviously, they work learning about what you guys are doing, move this community forward. But, just a kind of an observation, maybe a question. My observation is, it seems like the work that you're doing is very transactional on a case by case basis, and I'm wondering if you've encountered any challenges in trying to go from transactional complaint reviews to more macro, more broadly effective policy decisions, and whether or not the work of the legacy committee and the data analytics associated with the legacy committee has captured the right data from the past to allow that group to make maybe more broadly impactful recommendations to the police department. So that's my observation, and there's kind of a question embedded in that test as well.
There absolutely is. And Martha is teed up as our legacy chair to respond.
Absolutely. That's always the hope, right? I mean, you hear one sliver of a situation, but also you worry about how many other people have been affected by this that we don't know of, and what do we need to do to prevent it from ever happening again? So really, that's the task at hand that we are trying to grapple with, even when it's we're looking at a specific case. We're also thinking about a larger scale solution-based opportunity.
So the ordinance gives us power to just review, like, the specific power is case by case basis for specific complaints. But it also gives us the power to look at historical data, to look at historical trends. And that is where we got a little bit excited for that. So we're like, okay, we can't look at old cases or old complaints that have been closed. We don't have the authority to do that. What we do have the authority to do is look at the larger picture and then make changes from that. So that was.
And I just want to
Make
add here,
changes or
Make recommendations, yes,
Sorry.
for changes.
but I do want to add here, this is where community comes into play, right? Our power is in line with our community's willingness to extend that power to us, right? Our city council and our city council can also do that. And so again, I think the other thing that I was surprised by, in each case, we do have the transactional, but there's actually an analysis that includes policy recommendations that are outside of our authority to be able to implement. The annual report is also compiled so that you can kind of see those trends, because we're also seeing trends within just the time that we've been doing case reviews. And so not only is there the legacy data, but then there's also things that we're seeing that led to some of the focus areas that we have now. Unfortunately, they're going to take us out of this library. So if you wouldn't mind, Joey, putting up the slide so I can quickly. Okay. I didn't want to start at 5:30. I wanted to have people have time between work to be able to attend this. And so, and then just go to the next slide. But very, very grateful to have you all here with us. So, I did have I totally forgot. There is the recruitment process and timeline. So as I mentioned, the applications open next week. They will be open for 3 weeks. So we are going to be doing lots of other opportunities to please share the word. There is the October 17th to the 20th, the end of October, we'll start interviews and scheduling interviews into November. Deliberations and selections will be completed November 18th. And we will send the memo to the council, and then the council approves in mid December. And it was my understanding the term starts January or February? February 2023. So if you've got a little bit of bandwidth there for, and for students, it is a 1-year term. But again, we recognize if you're a senior, so that's something that you may want to be considerate of. And this is also mindful of, we may need an ordinance change because again, if you're a senior and you want to do it for a semester, that may be something that we would like to explore. But we don't have the capacity to do that. We all have the capacity to do that. That's Boulder, right? So, but the ways to engage is obviously becoming a panelist. So please, we would love to have more panel members. But don't worry, you don't have time. I don't have time for that. But what you do have time for is joining a panel. If the legacy committee is your jam, if you are interested in diving deep into data, into making recommendations, please, those meetings are open to the public, and it's not sit and get, like we just let you in and we'll talk. We also have the communications and community engagement. So we'll do quarterly community events throughout the city. And so if that's something that you would like to get more involved in, we would love to have you there. If you'd like to host a community event, we would love that as well. Obviously, we have our monthly meetings online, which you're welcome to attend. We do have a public comment section at every section. And then, of course, the quarterly meetings with the chief. And I'm going to say those are juicy and they're not recorded. So I highly recommend coming to the quarter. I was surprised. Anywho, having said that, I think I just have a thank you slide. And obviously we'll be around if you have any questions as we're kind of setting things back up in the room. I want to thank my fellow panelists online, Martha and Chico, Hadassah and Victor. I want to thank Joey for all of his work in supporting us and also bringing all of these wonderful snacks. So please take a snack for the road. That's a less of things for us to have to carry around. And again, thank you so much. And the best thing you can do for us is tell a friend and tell another friend and tell another friend. Y'all take care. Good night.
Bye.